Now, as you know, for 12 or so days now, anyone connected to Dubbo Town Water Supply has been under a boil water alert. That's Dubbo, Furgrove, Wongarbin, Mundry, Ballamore, Mogrigai and Brocklehurst. It's all thanks to a bit of flood-related turbidity and, of course, a nasty little cryptosporidium bug that can create a few tummy hassles. Yesterday, you and I got the first news from the council about the stage lifting of those alerts. And Matthew Dickerson is the Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council. Matthew, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick.
Great news about the Rifle Range Reservoir we're hearing yesterday. Particularly great for me. It services West Dubbo, including my house. So thank you very much.
Perfect. It was done just for you, Nick.
Thank you. But that is great news. And hopefully we're going to hear more of those reservoirs being lifted from the boil of water alert this week.
Yeah, certainly the plan at this stage, but don't take this as gospel. Wait until you actually hear the boil water alert is lifted in each of these areas. But the plan at this stage is that the Burke Hill Reservoir, which feeds still west of the river and more of a northerly direction, so north of, say, Narromine Road, that should be lifted tomorrow. And then Friday should be the Newtown Reservoir. The Newtown Reservoir is up on the top of Tamworth Street, Fitzroy Street intersection, up around that area there. So that feeds that sort of south-central Dubbo area. So they're the ones that hopefully will be given permission to lift this week. The Rifle Range one that you mentioned already is essentially west of the river and south of Narromine Road. But again, there is the ability to check. There's an interactive map. You can put your address in, check that. If you go to dubbo.nsw.gov.au/water, you'll be able to go and see that map. And you can drill right down and look at it and see what addresses are there, or just type your address in. And if people are a little bit struggling with the whole concept of an interactive map, they can just ring council and say, here's my address. Can you please tell me whether the boil water alert has been lifted or not?
You said that these timelines may move. What would impact them?
We're having an ongoing discussion, for a nice way of putting it, Nick, with New South Wales Health about this whole technical concept of dilution levels in each reservoir. We're presenting our information. We've actually had to hire consultants in to back up the information that our staff are providing to New South Wales Health to give more validity to the numbers that we're putting forward. New South Wales Health have been pushing back against that, and what they're trying to achieve, and really from what we can work out, the last 56 boil water alerts that have been across this state, we're only the second council that's had to actually do this to this level. They're trying to get to the stage where they believe there is a 0.1% dilution level in each of the reservoirs, so that each reservoir being different sizes, different flow-through rates, we're trying to achieve that 0.1%, which in my mind is way over the top in regard to public health and safety. Obviously, from a council perspective, we're not interested in there being an outbreak of cryptosporidium across the entire community. So that's our focus, is obviously safety. New South Wales Health's focus is safety as well, but it seems to me that they've just suddenly, for whatever reason, have gone way over the top compared to all the other releases out of boil water alerts. In fact, more than half of the last boil water alerts that I've investigated over the state have been released in less than 10 days. And as you said, we've already been going since the 7th of July.
So you're seeing it as unduly onerous from the New South Wales Health?
I am, and that's certainly the issue that we've got going forward, is that at the moment we've flushed out our entire reservoir network, 86 megalitres we can store in our reservoirs. We've already put more than double that through the network. Over 170 megalitres has gone through the network of good above spec water, so water that's in the right conditions. Keep in mind that we only had water that was above the turbidity level of 0.5 for 10 hours. So we only put about 7.8 megalitres into our reservoirs. And then since last Thursday, week ago, Thursday 7th of July, from 6:18 p.m. that night, we've been putting water that's been within the correct specifications into the network. So for all that water being flushed through the network, still New South Wales Health are saying no, each reservoir, we've got to be able to demonstrate that each reservoir is at this 0.1% dilution level, which I don't know the science behind the 0.1%, but that's the figure that they've chosen, which is not a figure that we've seen in operation before. So we are breaking new ground, guinea pigs, whichever way you want to call it. So I personally believe they are being too onerous in that. And again, it's about safety. So they're being incredibly safe in what they're delivering, but we believe the water would be safe now to drink at all the reservoirs.
But people should be still operating under that boil water alert, obviously, until advised otherwise.
Correct, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to say to the community, you're under a boil water alert for all those reservoirs apart from Rifle Range Reservoir. You need to keep boiling the water because that's what we're told to say from New South Wales Health. We can't overrule New South Wales Health. They can overrule us.
Matthew Dixon, if we get to the end of this week and the three reservoirs that we were talking about earlier, Burke Hill, Newtown Reservoir, in addition to Rifle Range that we already know has been cleared, if they're cleared, how much work remains? How many other reservoirs need to be given the seal of approval?
Yeah, well, there's still a fair few reservoirs to go. You've got Standpipe, Yulamoga, Bunanyong, Yarrandale. There's a number of other reservoirs to go before we'll get to the stage where they're all cleared. So we're not even talking about all those reservoirs being cleared by the end of this week. There'll still be some, if we keep basing it on the process there with New South Wales Health, still be some going next week. The logical thing here, Nick, we're trying to stop is people in the community getting cryptosporidium. So we thought the logical thing to do would be to get that tested, the water tested out of those reservoirs for crypto. So we organised with Sydney Water, who can do the testing, to have some testing done because obviously that's what we want to prevent. But New South Wales Health said we don't really put validity in the testing for crypto. You've got to get down to this dilution level, which again doesn't seem logical. If I'm worried about catching crypto, then surely testing for crypto would make sense.
Yeah, I can hear your frustration. It does seem like a small disconnect, but unless New South Wales Health are going to reverse their position on that, that's the parameters you're operating under.
We've got to operate under their parameters, and we'll keep arguing, and we are arguing with them, as I say, every day. We're having discussions and meetings with both local and Sydney officials from New South Wales Health and other departments, other government departments as well. So we're in there doing the best we can for the community. And keep in mind, Nick, that it was still our problem that created this issue in the first place. So that wasn't New South Wales Health's fault. That was Dubbo Regional Council's fault. The water that we were coming into the water treatment plant was a very high turbidity level, and then we couldn't treat it to a level that satisfied the Australian drinking water standards in the water coming out. So that was still our fault, our problem that we had to deal with, and then we went through a process notifying New South Wales Health, notifying the community, etc., about that. So that was still our fault in the first place, but it just seems to be coming out of it seems to be a lot harder than we would ever expect it to be.
Yeah, okay, I can see that and understand what you'll be pushing back against New South Wales Health. Assuming they stand firm, that does mean we're looking well into next week before we can see the majority of those reservoirs given a thumbs up.
You're absolutely right, and it's a process where a reservoir feeds another reservoir. So there are three main reservoirs in Dubbo that the water treatment plant feeds directly into, and then other reservoirs are downstream. So, for example, when you get out to places like Wongarbin, when you get at places like Umundri, then they're the furthest ones away from the water treatment plant. They'll be the ones logically that will take the longest to get to the point where that boil water alert will be lifted from those. So I've been called out already, Nick, when I've said, look, I think it'll only have so many more days to go, and it's gone way past what I thought. So I'm a little bit reluctant to say how many more days for some of those other ones. All I can say at this stage is the plan tomorrow is Burke Hill, the plan for Friday is Newtown, and then stay tuned for further. Next week we hope we'll get more of those lifted.
All right, Matthew Dixon, appreciate your time this morning. We will check back in with you. Thank you. Matthew is the Mayor